Welcome. During the past 4 weeks, we have discovered just how amazing sunshine and water and air was master designed for life on Earth, and that our health depends on using every one of these as intended. We also investigated and now understand why exercise is so important for good health. We have deliberately delayed on the nutrition topic in order to make sure that it is seen not the all-in-all, but just another component of health and well-being. And looking at the NEWSTART acronym, the best components is yet to be discussed from a scientific point of view. Very exciting information still coming. So today we will talk about nutrition. As usual, let's see what the Book of Life has to say first. In 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31, it reads, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." This advice actually covers all the factors we have discussed up till now, today's and the two still to come. And in line with what we have discovered so far, we can interpret this text as follows. God designed man and placed him in an environment that perfectly matches all his needs. If mankind exercise his choice and follow the designer's manual at all times, so that he stays within the perimeters of nature, health and character will be protected. Dr. T.C. Campbell, a giant in the understanding of human nutrition, has this to say about nutrition. Nutrition, when done right, can create more health than all the pills and procedures combined. You can get his advice against the current pandemic on the link inserted on this slide at the bottom. He says, "Our most important defense against COVID-19 is by strengthening our immune systems through our food choices." On this slide, he says, "Eat whole food, not individual nutrients or food fragments. Plant provide all the protein needed for optimum health, 8 to 10% or more of total calories. No animal protein is needed." We were designed to enjoy these colors with life-sustaining phytochemicals, but instead we have chosen these colors and we suffer the consequences on an ever-escalating way. The dire consequences can be seen in the statistics compiled by a concerned group called the Mums of America. The stats is probably true for all Western countries and should stop every parent in their tracks and from carrying on as usual. Dr. T.C. Campbell, who is also considered America's premier nutritionist, says, "Our health is directly related to our diet. The more unprocessed, plant-based foods are in the diet, the fewer chronic illnesses will occur. Whole food is best. For example, an apple, 100 grams, has 5.7 milligrams of vitamin C, but antioxidant equivalent to 1500 milligrams vitamin C. And then there's the beauty of stacking phytochemicals so that more colors on the plate add to more goodness than just adding the individual strengths of each color. This is an extremely important research finding and worth you pausing the video for a while and studying these graphs individually. On the x-axis of each graph, the bottom line is quantity consumed of each food group. There's 12 food groups. And on the y-axis, the vertical line, is the relative effect on mortality or longevity. One is neutral on the y-axis, and an upward positive trend signify a positive relationship with mortality. The steeper, the quicker death will come. A downward trend indicate an inverse relationship with mortality. In other words, a positive relationship with longevity, where the confidence interval lines, those lines either side of the middle line, stay close together. It means there is little variation in the population tested for outcome. The top left food group is whole grain, and it is indicated as the best stable diet choice for longevity, and the bottom left, which is red meat, has been found to be the worst choice for longevity for all groups investigated. Look for a moment at pulses on the right and note an ever-increasing variation in the population response for quantity consumption per day. The bottom line on that slope shows an excellent relationship with longevity, and I will explain the reason why everybody is not on that line a little later in this talk. According to this peer-reviewed scientific publication, legumes turned out to be the most important dietary predictor of survival in older people of different ethnicities. And if we look at a listing of the super centenarians in the world today, the country with the highest intake of soybeans in the world, which is a pulse, is Japan, which is a relatively small country in comparison to big populations like in the US. Japan houses 12 of the top 20 oldest people alive today. Protein is very important. The Harvard School of Public Health has this to say about protein. Take away the water and about 75% of your weight is protein. This chemical family is found throughout the body. It's in the muscle, in the bone, in the skin, in the hair, virtually every other body part of the tissue. It makes up the enzymes that power many chemical reactions and the hemoglobin that carries carries oxygen in your blood. At least 10,000 different proteins make you what you are and keep you that way. 20 or so basic building blocks called amino acids provide the raw material for all proteins. Because the body does not store amino acids as it does fats or carbohydrates, it needs a daily supply of amino acids to make new protein. In other words, it is important to choose your source of protein wisely. Somewhere in history, man acquired a taste for the milk of other species, but science is systematically uncovering evidence that that was not a good idea. In this table, you can see the protein content for different species and the rate at which each species double their birth weight. A rat at the bottom of the list with the highest protein content make it in the quickest of time, 4.5 days. A human baby, on the other hand, which gets its breast milk at the designed protein content of 1.2%, is supposed to double its weight only in 180 days. Just looking at this table makes it questionable to consider drinking the milk of another species. Professor T.C. Campbell, who is Professor Emeritus of Nutritional Biochemistry at Cornell University, also the founder of the T.C. Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies and online plant-based nutrition certificate in participation with Cornell, had this to say after his lifelong study on protein. Dietary protein proved to be so powerful in its effect that we could turn on or turn off liver cancer growth simply by changing the level consumed or the type of protein. Casein from cow's milk promoted all stages of cancer, and plant protein, soybean, did not. The Adventist health studies investigated lifestyle and health amongst people with high moral social standards. For one, they do not use alcohol or tobacco products. The investigation grouped participants into three groups. The histogram compared three categories with a California average as 100%. The study included 6,318 adults over the age of 50 and found that animal-based protein were 74% more likely to die of fatal heart disease than the plant-based protein counterparts. They were also several times more likely to die of diabetes, researchers said. In a follow-up study, 5 categories were created, and again, the animal-based group were the worst off compared to the vegan or the plant-based group in terms of their body mass index and their type 2 diabetes prevalence. Dr. Michael Greger publishes regularly on YouTube, and it's worth watching him. He points a finger at the high methionine amino acid content in animal products, being one reason for the health risk of animal-based diet. In this histogram, he shows us that fruit, nuts, veggies, grains, and beans is low in methionine in relative to animal products, which includes milk, egg, and fish, which is much higher in methionine. This study indicates that methionine, which is one of the essential amino acids or building blocks for protein, that in high ratios in protein, it can contribute to many illnesses, of which arthritis, discussed in this article, is but one. When I started my career as soybean researcher, I was made to believe that soybeans are deficient in sulfur-containing amino acids. In other words, in methionine and cysteine, which are both sulfur-containing. Today, I know that soybeans was master designed for human consumption to be low in sulfur-containing amino acids for a very good reason. In this study, high animal protein diet, high in sulfur-containing amino acid, was positively associated with high homocysteine, whereas high plant protein was inversely associated. Today we know that high homocysteine is as bad as high LDL cholesterol. This is a 20-page review article on methionine and metabolic health. The conclusion is that methionine restriction leads to extension of lifespan, increases metabolic flexibility and overall insulin sensitivity, and improves lipid metabolism while decreasing systemic inflammation. This graph from the China study shows a strong relationship between heart disease death rate for men aged 55 to 95 years and animal protein consumption across 20 countries. In this study, it was concluded that an animal-based diet, including fish and poultry, had twice the risk to develop dementia or Alzheimer's than a plant-based diet. Alzheimer's is the 6th leading killer in the USA at present. Negligible arachidonic acid intake may help explain the favorable mood profile observed for vegetarian diets in this study. If you have any concerns for coronary artery disease in the family, then it will be worth your while to read this a publication by Dr. Cadwell Esselstyn. He did pioneering work in restoring quality of life for coronary artery disease patients. In this research article, a total of 146 cases is presented, of which 99.4% had a complete recovery, whereas 62% of patients who opted out of the program experienced recurring coronary artery disease. These plates comes from the same article, and on the left shows a dysfunctional artery at the top and an almost normal same artery 3 weeks after treatment started. On the right, a virtually destroyed artery is shown with little hope for the patient in surgical intervention. However, on the right is that same artery after 32 months following Dr. Esselstyn's program, which can be viewed in the link which is inserted in this slide. Dr. Esselstyn truly has many, many years of experience, and he certainly has the authority to tell you how to make your heart attack-proof and to help you to live a long quality life. And his advice is simple: whole food plant-based diet, which will take about 3 weeks to make you heart attack proof. He says the secret is in a healthy endothelial lining, and nitric oxide is a magical key to his success. The inserted plate on the slide features 2 arterial cross sections. On the right is a terribly diseased artery that took many decades of mismanagement to get there. And on the left is a normal artery. The delicate innermost lining, which is visible as a black line, is the absolute life jacket and guardian of our blood vessels. It manufactures a truly magical molecule of gas called nitric oxide. You may recall that we have spoken about nitric oxide before. It has a truly remarkable function. Nitric oxide prevents stickiness in the artery, avoids arterial thickening, prevents blockages, and destroys the oxidated foam cells. Things that can hurt the endothelial cells are oil, fish, fowl, meat, dairy, sugar, caffeinated coffee, etc. The magical nitric oxide is made from arginine amino acid, and you may guess that soybean protein can supply you with a daily dose of arginine amino acid. It is an important precursor for nitric oxide. Nitric oxide synthase is also needed to produce the nitric oxide, and that comes from leafy green vegetables, which makes the synthase enzyme when you chew the leafy vegetables. The 5 best leafy vegetables for nitric oxide is kale, Swiss chard, spinach, arugula, and beet greens. And the advice is to boil these for about 5 or 6 minutes and then to chew it thoroughly in the mouth. The integrity of the endothelial cells is absolutely critical to extend life expectancy, which seems quite achievable, even to live 1,000 years, and we will continue to elaborate on this. It is also important to take note of this advice in light of the current pandemic that we have in the country. Because one feature of this virus is to attack the upper, the arterial lining and the upper respiratory tract. So the general consensus is that plant-based diets are associated with lower all-cause mortality. So it is no wonder that countries or governments is starting to take note. And this journal has it in big print at the top, Canada Goes Vegan. Dr. William Lee is another pioneer in the science of how the body can heal itself. A YouTube audiovisual of him is worth watching. Look for the science of how the body heals itself. In this slide, he shows the factors contributing to cancer. Despite almost 6,000 years of genetic degeneration, our genetic disposition currently only contributes to about 5 to 10% to cancer prevalence. That means that we have a significant control over our risk of contracting cancer. In this slide, Dr. Lee demonstrates how powerful genistein from soybean is in shutting down cancer. The white hairs in the petri dish on the left are hundreds of blood vessels growing out in a starburst fashion around the aorta ring in cross-section. In the dish on the right, genistein blocked their growth powerfully. So the rumor about the dangers of soybean phytoestrogen, the journalist name for genistein, is a complete false urban legend. Let me tell you more about genistein. Overproduction of genistein in women can lead to breast cancer. This study shows that genistein prevented bone loss caused by genistein deficiency without exerting the adverse effects on the breasts. In addition, it reduces bone resorption markers and enhances new bone formation parameters, in turn producing a net gain of bone mass. Genistein actually did better than bone replacement therapy if you look at the histogram on the left. Deficiency of estrogen in later life combined with an acidic lifestyle drains the bones of calcium, which can lead to osteoporosis and hip fractures. The amazing from soybean consumption throughout life can, however, protect both against overproduction of estrogen early in life and then underproduction of estrogen after menopause. And as a bonus, it also boosts bone formation. Is that not remarkable for a plant that has been designed to be man's meat, as it is put in Genesis 1, verse 29. Here it is depicted the biochemical structure for genistein, an isoflavone, or also called a phytoestrogen, at the top, and the human hormone estrogen at the bottom. They are not the same, but the human body was designed with receptors for genistein, which operate in an amazing way, as if the creator of man knew that man will one day need protection from his own hormone and also support when that same hormone fails him. We know today that the human body contains an ER alpha receptor which responds to estrogen and a ER beta receptor that respond to genistein. Genistein acts as an anti-estrogen agent in the breasts or prostate, thus preventing and protecting against cancer caused by overproduction of estrogen. Genistein also acts as an pro-estrogen agent in preventing bone loss during an estrogen deficiency and in overcoming the difficulties during the menopause years. Evidence that soy-rich diets decrease prostate cancer risk accords well with the observation that ER-beta appears to play an anti-proliferative role in healthy prostate. In the breast, ER-alpha promotes epithelial proliferation, whereas ER-beta has a restraining influence in that regard, consistent with the emerging view that soy isoflavones do not increase breast cancer risk and possibly may diminish it. So instead of presenting an cancer risk as rumors have it, genistein from soya actually protects against both prostate and breast cancer risk. Soybeans, which is a pulse, can boost brain function. In choosing pulses, as the King James Version has it, and water, Daniel lived a lifestyle according to the master design, which equipped him as ambassador for his Creator on earth and enabled him to outlive several Babylonian kings. Peptides from soybeans may influence the immune system and hormones linked to emotion and ultimately boost brain function, according to a Sino-Japanese study. Results suggest that adequate supplementation with soybeans can be useful in healthy populations through an improvement in immune functions, stress relief, and brain circulation. Stem cells is another amazing discovery which indicates that man has a possibility to live forever. In this graph, the researchers show how stem cells from bone marrow increase in blood after a burn injury. The line presents an average for 25 patients in Italy. Stem cells can become any type of specialized cell, and if stem cells can be increased indefinitely, all functions in the body can be maintained indefinitely. In this graph, it is shown that omega-3 fatty acid present in linseed and in soya, for example, can wake stem cells up and prompt them to do their job. The question of cell renewal is one that all of us have intuitive daily experience with. We have all had the experience of cutting ourselves only to see how new cells replaced their damaged predecessors. And we donate blood or give blood samples without gradually draining our circulatory system. All of these examples point to a replacement rate of cells that is characteristic of different tissues and in different conditions, but which makes it abundantly clear that for many cell types, renewal is a part of their history and their story. To be more concrete, our skin cells are known to constantly be shed and then renewed. Red blood cells make their repetitive journey through our bloodstream with a lifetime of about 4 months. About 100 million new red blood cells are being formed in our body every minute. We now have evidence from several research projects that even brain cells and nervous system can be replaced. A collection of the replacement rates of different cells in our body is given in the table on this slide, which you can study by pausing the program for a minute. The gut microbiome is a study which is now also hotly pursued in recent times. We now know that gut bacteria play a critical role in maintaining good health. In this graph, Lactobacillus rhetoric bacteria is shown to help protect us against bad habits in terms of food choice in the histogram. L. reuteri also prevents obesity. It makes the brain release more oxytocin, the friendly hormone, and control our social network. During childbirth, the body has a remarkable way to migrate this bacteria from the gut to the breast, where it can be passed on to the baby. Here is a list of foods that support the body's microbiome. I've added soybean because I know that the long-chain sugars in soybean, stachyose, raffinose, and verbascose, feeds bifidobacteria, a gut bacteria that have been associated with longevity in a Japanese study. In these bacteria, if these bacteria are not fed and maintained in the microbiome, individuals can experience bloating and then start to resist soybean consumption. Artificial sweeteners, another human invention, has been shown to damage the gut microbiome. Then there's a story about sugar, and it will be worth your while to watch The Bitter Truth by Robert Lustig, if you have not done so already. It explains the shocking facts around man's self-destruction when sugar extraction and high fructose corn syrup was invented. In this graph, he illustrates the effect of soft drink, which contains high amounts of sugar, as the effect that soft drink avoidance had on obesity trends. Remarkable. High fructose corn syrup and diabetes prevalence is the title of this scientific publication. Fructose disarm vitamin D. That is bad news, and it's bad in light of what we have discovered in the talk on sunlight and vitamin D's vital role in health. Fructose stimulates the breakdown of vitamin D and blocks the final step in the production of the active form of vitamin D, as explained in the Blackboard explanation by Dr. Shiut, presenter of the popular weekly medical scientific reporting on the coronavirus pandemic. A quick word on fermented foods, which includes natto. Fermented foods is an important source of probiotics for our microbiome. We have noted how important it is to nurture the microbiome in the body. Long-chain sugar cannot be digested, but do feed the bifidobacteria important and associated with long life expectancy. Sauerkraut is an important source of lactobacillus and leuconostoc species. Pomegranate support Akkermansia, which does not exist as a probiotic. So if you take a prescription for a bacteria killer such as Bayersin or clarithromycin, it will wipe the Akkermansia out within 2 days, and you will have difficulty to replace the losses. Natto supplies us with Bacillus subtilis bacteria and also with nattokinase enzyme. Natto is a Japanese favorite dish which Westerners need to climatize to, but the benefits are significant. It is the best source of vitamin K2, essential in building strong bone. Vitamin D3 brings or mobilizes the calcium in the blood, and vitamin K2 takes it into the bone. It is also a source of nattokinase that improves blood flow even better than aspirin does. Let's talk about glyphosate, another invention by humans with devastating effect on human health. When a child demonstrated autistic behavior, a smart doctor may test for fungus and bacteria in the urine. Why will he do that? If gut bacteria is disturbed by chemicals such as glyphosate, it could lead to inflammation in the brain and present behavioral issues. Children showing autistic behavior tested 8 times the level of glyphosate in the urine than ever found in Europe. In modern agriculture, glyphosate is used as a drying agent for uniform ripening on wheat, on beans, on sugar, and on oats. Mums for America, which is a concerned mothers group, tested children's favorite breakfast cereals and found that the popular Cheerios had a high rate of residual glyphosate. The highlights in this publication indicate that glyphosate can affect the blood-brain barrier integrity. It can diffuse across the blood-brain barrier, which is not good news. Here is another article on the possible link between autism and glyphosate herbicide. By now you may be thinking that one will be better off not eating. Well, that is what this study is about. The results show that both emotional and physical well-being can be improved significantly during and 5 to up to 20 days of a 200-calorie restricted food intake fasting period. Some of the outcomes were that fasting mobilizes the energy stored in the fatty tissue. The metabolism switches from glucose to fat and ketone consumption, causing many beneficial effects. Fasting leads to significant weight loss, a reduced abdominal circumference, and lower cholesterol and blood lipid levels. Fasting also normalized blood pressure and improved diabetic parameters such as blood sugar, thus improving many factors that contribute to a healthy cardiovascular system. Furthermore, in 84% of cases, serious health conditions such as arthritis, type 2 diabetes, as well as fatty liver and hypercholesterol, high blood pressure, and fatigue improved through fasting. 93% of the subjects did not feel hungry during fasting, which contributed to their emotional and physical well-being. Intermittent fasting is the only opportunity for adults to rejuvenate tissues. So it's something to consider. Dr. Michael Greger's tips for healthy living is 4 servings of fruit per day, 5 servings of vegetables, mixed in whole grains, flaxseed, nuts, drink water, black tea, oolong tea, and have at least 90 minutes of daily exercise. This is an interesting graph illustrating the effect of a high-fat diet and a high-carb diet on blood sugar over a period of 2 days. When the groups were switched, the response stayed the same. The high-fat group had a high blood sugar and the carbohydrate group had low blood sugar. It is different from what one would expect. Here is another graph from the China study showing the relationship between high animal fat intake and breast cancer. Extracted plant oils is equally bad for human health and clearly illustrated in this graph, plotting omega-6 oils over mortality from coronary artery disease. The finding in this study was that extracted olive oil, soybean oil, and palm oils are the same in outcome. No difference was found in the acute adverse effect of ingestion of these oils on the endothelial function. This is a very important graph by Dr. Chris and is extremely important as it explains a common factor for most, if not all, Western diseases. Before the mass extraction of plant oils started, most Western diseases was unheard of and extremely rare. Since the hexane process was developed and the consumption of edible oils skyrocketed, these diseases also skyrocketed. The abbreviations on the bottom right stands for type 2 diabetes mellitus and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Also note the formation of acrolein in the left blue box. It is the same product as found in cigarette smoke. Here is a map of food metabolism in the human body. It is fantastically complex and life-sustaining. It truly speaks to a master creator and a master design. But if one deviates from the designer manual and plug in refined and processed foods, high oils, and other do not know what you are doing stuff, then the end result may be what the Germans would call foobar, which means fouled up beyond all recognition. Shocking news is that French fries fried in oil contains acrolein, and that a packet of 150-gram French fries is equivalent to smoking about 83 light cigarettes. I'm sure you don't want to do that to your child. Ignorance is not bliss. I want to end off with words of wisdom spoken more than 100 years ago. It comes to us from the book Counsels on Health, page 40. Many seem to think that they have a right to treat their own bodies as they please, but they forget that their bodies are not their own. Their Creator, who formed them, has claims upon them that they cannot rightly throw off. Every needless transgression of the laws which God has established in our being is virtually a violation of the law of God, and is a great sin in the sight of heaven as to break the 10 Commandments. Ignorance upon this important subject is sin. The light is now beaming upon us, and we are without excuse if we do not cherish the light and become intelligent in regard to these things, which it is our highest earthly interest to understand. I thank you for watching. We trust you learned something, or at least got a reminder to act on what you already know. Next time we will examine scientific evidence for temperance. I look forward to that study. Thank you and goodbye.